That's the doorbell at Jimmy's house. Now, when you come to my house, my doorbell sounds like this.
Hey, you're listening to the People's Weekly on peoplesradiounited.com. I'm Tim Best Buds. I'm here with Canadian Glenn, Nolan Hack, and Steve Shagwell. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well, man. Thanks as always for having me on.
I'm alive. I'm still here.
Glenn's always alive. So
Wow.
I'm trying after last week to not say I'm a little bit more rested. I'm a little bit more stoned, so I should be on the level now where I could act like an actual radio host and not say all the time like last week. I apologize for that. It was really bad for me.
Well, hang on here. You're making it sound like radio hosts have to be high. Hang on now.
I have to be high to walk outside and breathe in fresh air, so that it's just me, not radio host. Anything I do, I need to be a certain level of stoned, or else I'm sitting in depression and wallowing in I don't want to do anything isms. Anyway,
okay.
So what's going on with the view up here, Glenn?
Nothing out of the ordinary. Just, Canadian federal political scene. It's sounding like I'm going to have the Courage Foundation on either this Wednesday coming or the one after. The, administrator, Naomi Colvin, will be on. We'll be talking about updates with the Lowry Love situation and other causes that Courage Foundation has. And there will still be the View Up Here Global episode regarding the Free Anons organization. Right now, that's looking like either December 20th or 23rd to be determined.
Very
TBD.
Cool.
So cool. Yeah, People's Radio. We got our website updated now. It's looking a little bit better. We have our Friday show that you're listening to now if you're listening to this, and we have Wednesday's Who's Culture with Nolan here and St. Louis Gal, who's not here currently. And that's a good show. I recommend everybody listen to that. I guess, what's going on with you, Nolan? Anything new?
Well, for one, I'm laughing at Democrats and the quote unquote resistance, because this whole time the noise was impeach Trump. We have to get Trump out. At all costs, impeach that man. All right? Vote to impeach. No. We don't want to do that. No. It's not the time. It's not the time. We don't want to impeach him.
No, we've said this before. Anyone who hasn't heard, resistance is BS. We need the 4 Ds, the decolonize, dismantle, disrupt, and destroy. You can resist all day, but until you do the 4 Ds, you're getting nowhere.
I completely agree. Decolonize, I think, would be the most important one.
And hardest.
Yes, that's the truth. I think since we all have men on the show, and hopefully Gear and Gal will join us later, I think one of the most important phrases that I've ever heard is decolonize your penis. That's a very important one. I know it sounds like a joke, and it kind of is, but it's a very important one. Decolonize your penis.
I thought you were going to say, whoa, man up. Okay, that wasn't funny, sorry, but that is funny.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it was hilarity. I don't care. Anyway, Steve, anything new going on with you?
Well, No, I've been obviously real busy as an activist. This is a busy time for me with the causes that I'm really backing. They're all pretty busy at this time, so I've just been doing that. And that's really it. I'm hoping to have an interview schedule to announce very soon for ifoughtthelaw.info. And that's about all that's going on right now, currently. I've been so busy with the causes that matter. I haven't even put time into Your Band Sucks this week. Like, not even social media posting for it. It is a really busy time for all of us, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, the Nazis and the government and the other governments and corporations, they're keeping us fucking busy these days.
Yeah, they are. We have, two things we're talking about today as we go along. Jerusalem with Trump, and Bears Ears also with Trump trying to take that away from Native people. And of course, Jerusalem rightfully should be Palestinians. So it's a lot of correlations with this stuff. And when I say this stuff, colonizing means and colonizers. So I just came across an article saying that Trump's decision with Jerusalem is actually bringing the different parties in Israel together, which is very, very terrifying. And the whole Nazi Trump thing that people have been trying to hammer together since he started running, and some of that is fair, but you can add this to the list of things that are comparable with Nazi Germany and Trump, because whether by force or by cunning political skill, if you can get all the political parties in a certain country together, when you're that messed up as a human being and doing this many horrible things, including in that country, you can really do some damage. And there's already been, I think it was a death yesterday with all this fighting in Jerusalem, in Israel. Scary stuff.
It will be interesting to see what happens after Friday prayers today. It should be starting to hit the news any time if it hasn't started already. But Nolan, as far as the unification of political parties in Israel to support this idiotic Jerusalem decision, isn't that just really mirroring the United States? I mean, the Republicans and the Democrats are only concerned with the same goddamn thing, enriching the corporate state and criminalizing the rest of it. So isn't it just same shit, different channel?
Pretty much. And again, colonizing, colonizers. That's certainly the theme song.
What was that?
Colonizers across the globe. I know, I'm kidding. That was nice timing with the music there. But yeah, I think one thing when people look at global politics and the world today is most of the world is colonized and colonized by Western powers. And I can speak for my own people. Look at Africa. You have our organs are being harvested in Nigeria. Our bodies are being sold in slavery in Libya. And obviously you have these two continents that we live on here in North and South America, stolen continents, Australia, stolen continent. So this is what we are dealing with. And that's a reality that we have to admit that is a reality, and that's a reality we have to face.
You know what else this is, though? This is Trump catering and pandering to his main base. You have the religious right, because they believe that when all this stuff happens and Jerusalem's the capital and all this, then their religion can move forward. The end of the world could happen, and they can all ascend to heaven happily and watch the rest of us burn in hell. What?
Tim, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is something like people need to understand about the religious right. The religious right are psychopaths who literally want the end of the world. They want this Armageddon, nuclear warfare, people dying, like mass death. They want this because they believe that after that happens, their Messiah will come along and take them to some place where naked babies with wings are going to serenade them. And fucking, you can't make this shit up. This is what these people want. They want wholesale war and destruction. They are psychopaths. The Christian right, or the right-wing Christians, are psychopaths.
Well, anybody who believes in the Dominionist bullshit, yeah, you're pretty much labeled. And, I think the most dangerous thing about Dominionists and other extreme Christian dogmatic sects is that you can't change their minds. Period. This is how they're going to stay. It's what they're going to support. It's what they're going to push for. And yeah, I agree. It's a very troubling symbolism of declaring. Even this fact. You have a president of the United States declaring what the capital of another country is.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me? How the fuck does this work? It just, talk about imperialism. That's like when Hitler marched into Austria and him declaring who the government was and where the capital's going to be and how things are. It's the same damn thing.
The White House is a dump and is filled with rats and roaches. So I think maybe instead of Washington, D.C., Mar-a-Lago should be the new capital of the United States.
This is what happens when you don't have slaves cleaning the place for free, considering you built it.
Rebuilt it.
Yeah, we built it and then built the other one, or built. We built the one in Philadelphia, and then the one in Washington burned down, and then we rebuilt that one. Do I have that correct?
Have you considered that Trump is just a filthy, filthy person because he probably never had to clean up after himself? So he just throws food and garbage everywhere all over the floor and expects someone else to clean it up. And maybe the White House staff isn't as quick at cleaning up as he is at trashing the place. Therefore, vermin come in. That's probably what it is.
Well, he is a very immature person. And young men, even though he's obviously not a young man, but he acts like a very immature young man. A lot of young men don't keep their place neat, so that makes sense.
I guess.
What do you guys see, since we made this our first topic now, what do you guys see the actual point, if anything, to making this announcement now? Now, the world's airwaves were filled with Trump making this declaration against the advice of basically everyone else in the world, except for Netanyahu and AIPAC. But wasn't there also a little testimony to a congressional committee on the same day by none other than Donald Trump Jr.
Yep.
And
Again, reminds me of House of Cards.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're going to declare a war on, what do they call it on the show? I don't care what it was like their ISIS.
Yeah.
And that took away from the fact that kept President Spacey or President Underwood was messing with the voting booths. So that's sad how many very easy comparisons that have been made about Trump are true. How it's turning into houses. Our country's turning into House of Cards. He's like Hitler. But wait a minute. It kind of is, and he kind of is.
You know, I got a source in the White House, actually in there, that said this whole investigation by Mueller is a big nothing burger, and it'll end by Christmas. It'll be over with, and it's sad, tremendously sad. And I was told to.
Right.
So since he said believe him, I believe him.
Well, that's the thing about Washington politics and Washington politicians and American politics. If they wanted Trump out, he'd already be gone.
Yep.
They have so much dirt on him, whether it be the white collar stuff that you usually get these folks for, or the philandering, which they usually get these folks for, or the big stuff, the war crimes, the genocide, but they're spineless. And at the same time, a lot of these people are in his pocket. So, I mean, there was the whole thing last week about the tax bill, the tax scam, and he was upset that Schumer and Pelosi didn't want to have a meeting with him. And most people don't know, Trump's donated money to Schumer for running for office. So he obviously has some help in Congress, whether they give him help every single time or not. So for people expecting half of the Congress, or close to half, obviously Republicans still have it, it's just not going to happen. Because he has people in his pocket, and these people are spineless to begin with. They don't care about the people that they're supposed to represent, that voted them in. There are no real checks and balances. Look at the first person in Congress who was ousted because of the sexual harassment and sexual assault stuff with the Me Too was a black guy. Now, I don't care if you're black, green, white, yellow, whatever. You should not be sexually harassing or sexually assaulting anybody. But the President of the United States is most likely a rapist and a child rapist. But go after the black congressman.
Well, I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I still think it holds. And this is the entire basis of what the problem is with governance in Washington. The Founding Fathers foresaw a president like Trump. What they did not foresee was a Congress unwilling to use its power to remove him. That's the one thing they couldn't plan for. Nobody has a scenario where the House and the Senate refuse to do anything. I mean, there was a motion on the floor of the House this week to start impeachment against Trump. It was defeated by a 2-1 margin. Half the Democratic caucus in the House voted no. So, this is like you're stuck in a free-for-all wrestling match, and the refs let the rules be broken.
I think there's some strategy going on there on the Democratic side of things, because I think they're figuring out what I called, 2 months ago, that Trump is taking the Republican Party past the point of no return, where they are literally they can't come back from this. And if things continue with Trump at the wheel, there is absolutely no way the Republicans are going to be able to hang on to their congressional majority. It's going to be a purge, because I think a lot of Democrats are just looking at it like, let's just keep giving him enough. We've given him enough rope to hang himself. Let's give him enough rope to hang the whole Republican Party. And I think that's where they're coming from with that. And I think that's why they don't want to impeach,
Well, the thing that confuses me is the Republicans have a majority in the House. So why are half the Democratic caucus voting with the Republicans?
Like I said, I think they're just giving the Republicans enough rope to hang themselves. I mean, the longer this goes on, Trump's approval rating drops. Like 21 Republican congressmen have announced that they're not going to run next year, because they know they don't have a chance. They know they're just screwed, and they know it's going to get worse. And I think the Democratic Party is like, hell yeah, let them burn themselves to the ground, because they're running a long-term game, is what I think they're doing.
But yet any scenario like that is strictly political operations. Nobody gives a flying fuck about the American people, obviously.
Well, of course not. This is going to do such incredible damage to our democracy, to our process. It's going to do so much damage to the American people. Of course they don't care, because have you seen what a congressman makes for salary?
Yeah.
Have you seen? I mean, and then, they have their own political agenda. If the Republicans have fucked themselves so hard in the ass that they're gone, the Dems get control of Congress, and that's big for their political agendas and the interests of the people who are putting money in their pocket, because they're just as bought and sold as the Republicans.
$174,000 a year. That's
base.
The medium, the base.
Well, the thing that gets me is we were talking about the end of days scenario concerning Jerusalem. I think in D.C., I think there's a related but separate end of days campaign going on. It just sounds to me like the Republicans are trying to run the entire federal legislative branch into the ground. It seems to be the same idea.
Well, it may be, there may be, like, you have to look at it and be like, is there some kind of plot among Republicans to just, basically get control of the government and overturn these checks and balances? Maybe. What I do know is, to add to my analysis of what the Democrats are doing with this long-term game, I think they're playing a very dangerous game, because, until about a month ago, I was like, I was looking and I was saying, this has some parallels to like shit Hitler was pulling in Nazi Germany and shit Mussolini pulled and shit Stalin pulled. There were some parallels there, but I wasn't that concerned. I was like, he'll be gone before, any of this can happen. I'm not so sure now.
No.
I mean, I think the Dems are playing a very dangerous game by letting him go on and letting the Republican Party go on. I think what little remains of our democracy is really, really in danger right now.
Well, and I will say again, because honestly, every time I hear that, my skin crawls. This has never been a democracy, even for any person or any group of people in this country. And this has certainly never been a democracy for people of color, especially black and indigenous people. But I will say this. We've had presidents by the names of George W. Bush, Martin Van Buren, Andrew Jackson, Richard Nixon, Harry Truman, they didn't get kicked out of office. And I think I know most of those people I mentioned got the full 8 years. And in that time, in some of those administrations, you had Congress controlled by the Democrats. In fact, for most of George W. Bush's time in office, it was controlled by Democrats, or at least about half. I can't remember the exact number. But they didn't impeach him. He started a war based on lies, and of course, to avenge his daddy.
And without congressional approval.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He didn't get impeached. Richard Nixon did not get impeached. He wanted to nuke Vietnam. He didn't get impeached.
Right.
So Trump is an idiot. He is horribly racist. Granted, everyone not named Barack Obama is actually, I would say Barack Obama too, because he does not like Native people and has harmed them very deeply. But that's another story. Trump is about as bad a president as you're going to get in modern times, but he's still a white man, and he's still right now he became a politician. He's a Washington politician, and the people who are supposed to get him out are also Washington politicians. Some of which are in his pocket, some of which owe him favors, some of which, and Pelosi, by the way, who was with Schumer going, no, we're not going to meet with you. You know, Pelosi voted against impeachment. So I mean, we're expecting classless, heartless people to do the right thing.
Right.
Well, I mean, the issue of the AUMF authorization for use of military force, this is like a 25, 30-year-old statute, and it's been ignored nonstop for most of those 30 years. So, you know, I see people from the American Congress saying any president needs congressional approval for military force. Well, obviously not. We haven't seen that for decades now, but yet American military force is deployed all over the world. So, I mean, it seems to me like Congress has abandoned a lot of their duties long before Trump.
Yeah, they have. But, you know, and I agree with Nolan 110% that we really are a democracy in name only at this point. And, you know, it is certainly even more so the case for people of color and for the GLBT community, among other things. So I definitely agree with that. But my point I was making was it could be worse. It's been getting worse instead of better, and it's continuing to get worse. And now it looks like it's going to go right off the deep end. Like, we don't look like Nazi Germany, and we don't look like Stalin Russia, and we don't look like those things yet. We have things in common with those, but we don't look exactly like those. We're at a point now where we're about to look exactly like those, is what I was saying.
I think in modern times, I've thought about this a lot for multiple reasons. One, because I am black living in this country. Two, because I've always been interested in World War II, especially how Nazi Germany happened, because as awful as it was, it is fascinating. And there have been a number of things in entertainment about what of late of what would have happened if the Nazis had won. What would Germany look like? What would America look like, et cetera, et cetera. And I think with America looking at it right now, to compare to what it used to be, especially during these 18th and 19th centuries, when it did look like Nazi Germany, at least from the standpoint of black and indigenous people. Now, okay, well, we can go to a movie theater and we don't have to sit in the balcony. We can buy a car. We can become president and all that stuff. But at the same time, that genocide that we're still under, as defined by the United Nations, it has been evolved. So if you look at, again, this part is just guesstimation, just educated guess. But Nazi Germany, depending on how much of the world it had engulfed, if they had won, they would have had to evolve their genocide, because there's going to be camera phones, so they can't just execute a Jewish person on camera. And they were hiding that to a good point anyways. But they would have to change the game a little bit, because there are eyes everywhere. There's a 24-hour news cycle. So while it's at the same time, yeah, we don't have a straight-out martial law. We don't have a complete police state, even though there are areas that would fit the original definition of a police state. But all I'm saying is I think that needs to be put on the table as well, that although for the main populace, this is now looking like about as anti-democracy as this nation has ever been for them, white America.
Right.
But at the same time, this nation never, as we just discussed, obviously, never was a democracy, but still, looking at it, this is a very, very big hole that is being dug when it was already a hole. There's always been a hole, and this hole is getting dug deeper and deeper since January the 20th of 2017. So not much.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but either way, you guys are both kind of right, I think. The thing is that Native people, Black people, Latino people, it used to be really, really horrible. It's less horrible currently. Like there's no slavery. There's things, not on that same scale it is in the prison industry and stuff. But the thing about it is, now it's starting to move back towards that you know what I mean? It's like any progress that was made is starting to lose ground on that progress.
Right. Today, if police do something really fucked up, we can go out and we can protest. Will we get tear gassed? Yeah. Will we get, we'll experience some shit, but we can go do that. They aren't going to gun us down en masse. I fear now that we're heading towards a time where that could happen.
Well, today, was it yesterday or this week? I think it was the last couple of days at least. Roy Moore said, and this is a senator who is a pedophile, child rapist, trying to run for Senate. Roy Moore, pedophile and child rapist, said that the last time America was great was during slavery. So this guy, Alabama, says, you know what? That's when it was great. Because I've been asking those MAGA folks, the Make America Great Again Trumpers, well, when was it great? I want a date. I want it to the minute. I want a year. I want a day, a month, and a minute. When was the last time? Well, there you go. When black people were slaves in the United States on the plantation.
He actually said that?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't even hear that. Wow.
Well, again, to use my outsider position, most of the people in the rest of the world think that Alabama is like the Flintstones. I mean, they gave us Sessions, now Moore. Notice, of course, how the GOP suspended all support for Roy Moore until the uproar died down. And 2 days ago, they put their full support behind him again.
Glenn,
So, I mean, what?
you sound like you're talking against Jesus right now. You need to stop that.
Oh, yeah.
That Trump is endorsed him. The president of the United States endorsed the child rapist. But wait a minute. The president of the United States may be a child rapist?
But I find it interesting that that's exactly when the GOP got back behind it.
Yep. It's here, guys. And I am so not okay with this Roy Moore dude.
Cute.
Not only, yeah. Hey. How's it going?
Yeah, what is up?
Just, driving to fucking work to go be on the air while I'm on the air. I find that ironic. So, not only does he talk about slavery, but he also talks about women in a book that he wrote about how we should, be back in the kitchen making sandwiches and whatnot, how we're not allowed, shouldn't be allowed in the workplace, etc. So, I mean, I feel like I should break out the Handmaid's Tale outfit and just wear that right now, because I feel like that's where we're headed. If we've got this guy as the president who has been accused of being a child rapist, who's now supporting a suspected child rapist, I mean, how much lower can the country go as far as morals? I just don't see how the GOP recovers from this. I don't see people going to vote in the future, women especially, for Republicans after this. I think this is the death knell of not only the Republicans, but the Democrats as well, because it took, 7 accusers for them to call on Franken to resign? I think Franken should have resigned after the first accuser, honestly. It doesn't matter what party you're in. If you're attacking women, you need to go, period.
Yeah, it took them a while, didn't it?
Yeah, that's you're in politics. You're supposed to be, in charge of things and looking out for people's best interests. And if you've done stuff like that, you can't be in there. I mean, Al Franken, let him do some comedy or something, whatever. But, not people like that. I don't know what to say. They need to be out of Congress, but then Congress has rules where we can't even find out who some of these people are, that they've been paying off their victims and stuff, and we don't even know who they are, and we can't find out.
Well, that's another case right there. Farenthold should be out. He used public money to silence an accuser.
That's just one of many, though.
I know, but I mean, that is a demonstration of how perverted the system has become. When public money can be used to silence victims of crime, that, I'm sorry, but that only falls under one type of government, and that's a fascist government.
Yeah, but you see how they spun it. We were saving the taxpayers' money because a trial would have been crazy expensive. So settling was just a way to save you guys money. They're full of crap.
Why should the government pay for the defense
exactly
of a sexual assaulter? Period. This is what's wrong with even the Canadian government. At the end of the day, the people elected make the rules that control themselves without any checks or balances.
I mean, who the hell do they think they are? It's not like a worker at a fast food place doesn't get those kind of, he sexually assaulted somebody, let's hire him the best attorneys and do all this. They have to fire him because they don't want somebody like that around people. You know what I mean? But when you're on this high position, they'll pay it off and keep you there. It makes no sense to me.
It's the big game, man. I mean, there's a lot of people that I always look back to Mussolini's definition of fascism. It is the combining of corporate world and the government. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, here in the U.S. we sprinkle in a little religion too.
Well, I mean, that's just manufacturing consent of a select part of the population. That's all that is.
Yeah.
Well, this is a country that has had the third president was a child rapist who raped his child slave and forced her to have children. And as recently as when I was a child myself, Bill Clinton was president. You have even Gloria Steinem, who was a rat for the Central Intelligence Agency. She also said she had the chance, she'd do it again, meaning working for the CIA. Herself, she said, and a big Hillary Clinton stan, hung out with both of them, Bill and Hillary. She said, Mr. Clinton seems to have made a clumsy sexual pass, then accepted rejection. She also said that he's a candidate for sex addiction therapy. And
every rich person that gets caught doing something is a candidate for some kind of therapy resort they can go to.
Yeah, even Tiger Woods. Granted, Tiger didn't as far as didn't hurt anybody other than just emotionally hurting his wife by cheating. But yes, you're right. That is commonplace. Keep the rich out of prison. Put the poor in prison. Kevin Cooper, and if you don't know who he is, Google him. Is a innocent black prisoner on death row in California. He said himself that you look at everybody on death row, there's one thing in common.
Yeah,
we're all poor. Now, I don't, for the most part, I do not agree with the death penalty. And that being said, you would think if anybody deserves a death penalty, it'd be someone, Trump, either Clinton, Roy Moore. No. These people are trying to reach the highest office, and some of them actually did run the entire country, which happens to be the most powerful country on earth. This is the United States of America, people. This is what it has always done. Sexual assault is okay. Racism is okay. The two, when connected, certainly okay.
The richer you are, the more crimes you can commit and have no charges brought against you of any sort. And some of these crimes actually become legal and condoned the richer and more powerful you get. That's the United States. It's really twisted.
Exactly. Wealth equals absolution. And that's tying in religion to money. And that's the big cancer. Right there.
Well said, Glenn.
Yeah. Well, let's
nailed it.
Let's segue this into Mueller looking into Trump's bank records. That we'll move up on the list because we started low. Let's move up, and then we'll go and do all the updates at the end, I guess.
All right. Let me guess. Trump doesn't want Mueller looking into his bank records.
Well, he said
but
there's
not because he's guilty of anything.
No, he said there's the line he draws. He doesn't want that's the line. So I mean, is he going to fire Mueller? Is this investigation going to be over with by Christmas and there's nothing going to be found? That's what Trump claims. And they're looking into his financial records, and most people, it's kind of almost common knowledge that Trump in the past has laundered a lot of money for gangsters and political people around the world.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty common knowledge. I think this is the do or die moment for this investigation. Mueller, I think, is really rolling the dice and taking a risk by going after Trump's money. He's probably banking on the idea that Trump can't, like it would just be suicide for Trump to shut him down. But you can't say that for sure. I think Mueller's just taking a very calculated risk here. He's risking the whole thing for Trump's financials, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, if you follow the money, you're going to nail Trump for a lot more than just Russia. You're probably going to nail him for human trafficking. That's a safe bet. You're going to nail him for, like you said, money laundering for mafia.
Child labor.
Child labor. Illegal immigrant labor.
Well, that depends. I think where they do the child labor, it's actually legal because they do that in other countries in these sweatshops. So I don't know if they could get them for that.
But it's not legal according to U.S. law, and there are trade agreements where that is, the Americans are supposed to have a principled stand. If you're using child labor, then we're not importing your shit. But this workaround with Americans owning the sweatshops, oh, well, that's different now. It's almost like if you're American, you're allowed to get filthy rich off of child labor. But if you're a native of where the child labor is, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to make you rich.
Yeah, I think there probably is some kind of law there, but it's probably some kind of a gray area, or it's a law that just doesn't get enforced because overall it's like too much hassle to enforce it. Like I know you can't go to another country. Like if you, an American citizen, goes to another country to have sex with a child, when you come back, you can be prosecuted for that by the letter of the law. Does it happen? No, I've never seen it happen, but it's a law that's on the books, and if this child labor thing is going on, even though it's never been enforced before, if you have all this other stuff that Trump is found guilty of, then it's pretty easy for Mueller to throw that in there too, because people are going to be like, fuck yeah, nail him, burn him, So, I mean, that's just my thought on that.
Well, I think Nolan mentioned that Mueller's taking a calculated risk. Well,
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay. I think the basis of that is that Angela Merkel is still in charge in Germany. We know how her and Trump get along. And Deutsche Bank has had more than enough scandal in the last 5 years. And they may see this as an opportunity for them to hype up their corporate image and say, see, we've learned our lesson. Now we're helping. So I like that idea. I don't really think that Trump can accomplish anything by firing Mueller. It'll just make him the lightning rod. It's a very easy connection that he has a lot to hide if he would do it. He already went through enough bullshit from firing Comey. So I think he's learned that lesson. I think he's going to try and pressure Deutsche Bank, if anything.
Well, and the whole thing is... Oh, go ahead.
No, and his friends will.
Well, yeah. I think the whole thing, though, is, okay, if he fires Mueller, then what? I mean, there is, like, for him, it's a risk to fire Mueller, but I mean, we have no idea what the fuck happens if Mueller gets fired. Does the investigation just get called off at that point?
Trump was saying he wants his own intelligence agency, not under all the government rules and stuff. Yeah, like a private intelligence agency run by the Blackwater guy.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that would be the one investigating him at that point, and of course they would clear him, and that might be the gamble Trump is willing to take.
Well, we have precedent for that. It's called the Geheimstaatspolizei, the Gestapo. That's right. Exactly what that is.
Which we just kind of segged into another thing we were going to talk about, was this whole thing with the secret spy agency, the secret police, and then the whole thing with the show your papers now.
That's not secret police. That's regular police.
Right, but it's I mean, the two kind of go hand in hand.
they're trying to pass this 287G, and that'll make local police be able to ask for citizenship papers and act as ICE agents legally.
Yeah, I liken this to watching an old Western movie, and we need a posse. So all you guys are deputized. The federal government is trying to deputize local law enforcement to be federal agents. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
Well, I would, and we've kind of went in depth a little on the issue of, well, one party or one politician they're committing these crimes, or they're doing these things that are hardly things above board that they're doing. But then the other party or the other candidate or another politician does the same thing. The last president of the United States wanted to federalize the police in the United States. The Democratic nominee for president wanted to do the same thing and take that even further. And of course, Hillary Clinton believes black men are emotionally illiterate super predators. So these are, you're talking about having a Gestapo in the United States and local police having even more power, and they have so much already. This is just something that is an American ideal. I mean, cops originated as slave and, quote, Indian patrols, native patrols. So this is just taking a page from that and trying to go back to those days as much as we can, speaking for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, this would make the whole any police department within, if it becomes a federal law, any police department can act as ICE. They can go around like that Sheriff Joe Arpaio asshole, pulling over random Mexican people for no reason. But legitimately, I mean, like it's legal now for them to do this and ask them if they're citizens. And they could pull over people who look like they're from other countries. Are you a citizen? Let me see proof that you're a citizen. So this gives them the right just to pull people over, basically. Like now they have to say, oh, something was wrong with your car, or oh, you did this, or oh, I suspected you of this or that. This way they can just pull them over and say, hey, I suspected you're not a citizen.
It's bringing back stop and frisk. That's what it's doing. It's bringing back stop and frisk, and it's bringing it back at a national level.
Yep.
That's what's going on.
It's 100% racial profiling. I mean, this is not going to happen to white people. It's going to happen to people like me.
Yep.
I'm a dark-skinned Native American woman, and I don't carry citizenship papers, and I don't speak enough Spanish to get along in Mexico.
Exactly.
You shouldn't have to carry citizenship papers.
And you know what? Even if they said I had to, I wouldn't, because this is fucking America, and we have the Constitution that says we don't have to do shit like that.
Right on.
Well, I'm going to say this. I hope if this does happen, they go to Beverly Hills and start slamming white people against their cars and say, prove you're not here from Europe.
Right. Are you Irish? Are you Czech? Are you Slovak? What's going on?
Do I hear an accent? Yeah, that's what they need to do.
Are you an Italian? Oh my.
You're going back to Spain, motherfucker.
Again, this ain't new. This is just a continuation of Obama's policies, Bush's policies. I mean, Obama deported more people than any president in U.S. history, and he was, I think he was black, wasn't he? Yeah, I think he was black.
And he received a Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh my, yes. Oh, but that's up there with the Time Man of the Year. Have they changed it to Person of the Year yet?
Wait, didn't somebody say he wasn't born in the United States because he was born in Hawaii?
Oh, yeah. Well, the same...
Hawaii is Kenya, y'all. Didn't you know that?
What?
Yeah, Honolulu,
America
Kenya.
is being overrun by Hawaiian Kenyans. That needs to stop. It's becoming a dangerous situation.
Communist Hawaiian Kenyans.
Yeah, but I think the thing was when. Go ahead, Gary. I didn't hear you. Sorry.
I just said socialist, communist, Hawaiian Kenyans. Oh.
I think Obama's as much a communist as Bernie Sanders is a socialist.
Yeah, I think knowing Trump, what we know now about him and his geography and history skills and all that, he heard that Obama was born in Hawaii and didn't know Hawaii was part of the United States. I think that's the fact. That's how it all started. And then when he found out, he switched it to Africa or something. He's like, what? Who knew Hawaii was part of the United States? Well, he was born in Africa.
Actually, he probably did that. Very few people know that Hawaii is part of the United States.
Yeah.
But it's also the only native, a piece of native land that is recognized with any kind of sovereignty by other nations. And that being said, the native people are still being squeezed out there, still losing their land more and more by the second. And I would say to anybody listening, I know this is hard to hear, and I've vacationed in Hawaii twice, and I had a wonderful time. Each vacation you take in Hawaii is actually squeezing out native people even more because it adds to the tourism, and then it ruins their checkbooks because you're being squeezed out of their own land. More condos, more hotels, and I've heard native people will be living like 5 or 6 to a 2-bedroom just to have a place to live.
That's the Disneyfication. That's the Vegasfication. Just they've got a new place to do it. I mean, recently I was in Niagara Falls. I haven't been there for decades. And when I was there last time, it was still a tourist trap because you expect that. But it was more the usual tourist, anybody can do it things. Now in Niagara Falls, Ontario, there are 3 casinos. There is a massive shopping mall 300 yards from Horseshoe Falls. It has become so Disneyfied that it's disgusting. I was talking to a couple people from Germany, and they said, this all this natural beauty, you people put 2 casinos right beside it? And I said, actually, it's 3 casinos. And their jaw just dropped open further. I mean, the falls themselves are still impressive. There's still a fair amount of parkland around them, etc. They can accommodate the crowds, but it's like any other tourist mecca. As soon as you look away from the Niagara River, you look behind you, and it looks like you're in Vegas or Honolulu or Acapulco or Monte Carlo. They all look the same. It's this fucking monetization. It's gross.
Yeah, here's my advice to anybody looking at a place to go on vacation, tours looking for a awesome tourist spot. Whatever you do, stay the hell out of LA because first of all, we don't want you here, and second of all, if you come here, you're probably going to die. We have earthquakes, fires, shootings. It's insane. Just don't come here. Don't have Olympics here. Don't have sports teams come here. Just stay the fuck away from here. Thank you.
It's horrible. It's horrible. Okay, sorry.
Thank you. It's crowded enough here. We don't need more people here. Just stay the hell out away. Thank you.
I had a fantastic time. I mean, within, 2 hours, we had 25 cops just because we were at a park. Fuck's sake.
I was just trying to tell people don't come because I don't need more traffic and stuff. But yeah, it was awesome when Gear comes. You should always come, Gear.
I come down and see you. Don't worry.
Glenn, what you said about how you have these parks and then you turn around and there's these casinos and such. I'm starting to get into rock climbing, and something I'm looking really forward to is going to road tripping to certain national parks and camping out and doing rock climbing. And from what I've seen of this one move with Trump doing with the taking of lands, I think probably by the time I'm ready to make my first trip, there's not going to be any parks left for me to climb rocks in. Unless I breathe toxic fumes.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I imagine you'll still be able to climb, but you'll come down from the 38th floor of the Hilton and take a shuttle to the rock face. That's what's going to change.
Yeah, fuck that. And Trump's been doing a lot of things that make me mad. This really, really upsets me. And I mean, maybe it sounds trivial because, like, Trump's done some pretty horrible shit, but, there's not much nature, unspoiled nature left in this country that we can go to and just, practice some self-care and reflect and, get in our right minds. And now that's all being taken away, the little bit that we have in this country. I'm just like, fuck you, dude.
Not only that, dude, but those are huge Native American sites. There's a lot of artifacts and sacred sites in Bears Ears especially. And, he really hates us. He's jealous that we can get casinos and he can't manage to figure out how to run a casino. But we can. So that is underlying, I'm serious, that's an underlying bitch with us. I'm convinced of it. We're people of color who have learned how to run casinos effectively. So he's on this tear to destroy everything. He's trying to privatize reservations. He's trying to privatize national lands that have artifacts and sacred sites. There's been a lawsuit filed by 4 or 5 tribes, especially over the Bears Ears National Monument because of the sacred sites. So, I mean, don't negate the fact that there's a lot of resistance to this that you may not be hearing about.
Right.
Well, that's...
Right. It's bullshit. Sorry, go ahead, Glenn.
No, that's awesome, because as you know, Gear, Stephen Harper tried this in Canada starting a decade ago to try to open up and privatize First Nations land. And it was our court system that protected us from Harper getting anywhere on doing that. I'm not so sure that what's going on with the U.S. judiciary and all the appointments and all the red states in charge of their own Supreme Courts, I don't know if Native Americans are going to get the same protection from the courts that they deserve to get that everybody got in Canada.
No, they won't.
And they never have.
I think the only thing we have going for us is legal help. We have legal sway because there's a lot of tribes that have that kind of lawyer power. So there is that, you know what I mean? No, the laws do not protect us. They're actually written to destroy us and to make us extinct. So they've been working on that since, they showed up over here.
Well, they're still... You're right. You're right about that. When they build power plants or anything that's going to pollute the environment, where do they put it? On or next to reservations? What is it? Is it 95% of the Indian reservations don't even have clean drinking water?
Yeah.
I think it's lower than that. But it's ridiculously high. Is the point that you made? Yeah.
Well, yeah. No percentage point is acceptable.
Yes, exactly.
especially when you think about some of the Southwest tribes that have been, they've been subjected to uranium mining and those kinds of things. And they've got themselves in this horrible situation where these things create jobs, and the reservations are so poverty-stricken that they need the job, but it then, it destroys their drinking water and their land, and it's really screwed up the way that these businesses prey on these poverty-stricken communities.
No, it's economic slavery.
Well, it's so blatant. Amazing in the worst way. Well, blatant, yes. In the worst way, it's amazing how connected white supremacy is, especially how calculated it can be. And Gear just touched on how some native people, like, well, I don't have another option for a job, so I just work at the casino or work on the oil fields or whatever. And in the Congo, we are mining for gold and other things in the soil that are valuable to human beings, and that's not a big thing that we did back in the day before white people came over, and yet, well, you continue to decimate our land and have control over our land, take our money, take our resources. What other opportunity do I have to make a living for myself? Okay, I'll work in the mines. I'll ruin our own land, of course. And I'm not throwing blame on us like that. I'm just saying, hey, well, I don't have another option. So I mean, I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm picking me over the big picture, because that's I think a big point of especially Black and Indigenous, the plight that we face in different continents on this planet is survival, just day-to-day survival. And whether you're hugely aware of the white supremacy that's around us or not, just surviving day to day. So it is hard to blame a Black person for working in a gold mine or a diamond mine. It is hard to blame a Native person for working on an oil field or helping fracking take place. We're trying to live.
Oh, of course. And the other thing that I think is worth mentioning, especially for the Southwest United States, the explosion of type 2 diabetes in Native American populations, because they're basically being forced to eat cracker fast food, and it just simply doesn't jive with what they've been eating for thousands of years. And that's another...
Let me just say to you guys, fry bread is not a traditional food. Okay? It's just not. That is something that was born out of poverty and necessity. But it's not a traditional food, and I see... Actually, I was just watching a program before I came on FNX, which is the First Nations Network. It's fantastic, by the way. You can find them on the interwebs on YouTube. And they were talking about this. There's a huge push to go back to indigenous foods, and a lot of Native youth are really pushing this, and they're starting to eat the way that our elders ate. They start to say, like, it's really funny when you think about this in the global sense of the human being. Like, they say, I'm sober, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, but hold on, let me run through McDonald's real quick and get a burger. Like, that is antithetical to how we should be living. So a lot of us are going back to our roots when it comes to food, and really regaining those indigenous, not only practices, but then the food itself, like growing ancient seeds and shit like that. It's fantastic. It's really fascinating.
On the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, person makes an average of $4,000 a year. The diabetes rate is 8 times the national average. Over over 95% of folks on the Pine Ridge Reservation live in poverty. And if you know your history, that's where the incident at Oglala happened, and why Leonard Peltier is still in prison to this day, because this government wanted more native land and wanted to dig up the soil. And after taking it from indigenous people, per usual, they weren't having it. Leonard went to prison, and it's now 2017, and you have the Bears Ears situation. So this, I mean, I continue to press that this ain't new.
Yep.
This is hardly new. And I you know, with whether it's the police, the stealing of land, and the lack of viable choices to improve one's life in the hoods and the reservations, both of which were created by the federal government for us to live in. You know, there are pawn shops all over the place, gun shops,
liquor stores,
McDonald's, fast food joints all over the place, and we have to create healthy stores, whether you're talking about selling greens, fruit, good meals. We have to make that and take that out of our own pocket. You know, the powers that be are not putting a Sprouts up in, you know, up in Jackson, Mississippi, or up in Compton, California. We have to do that ourselves. And it's that much harder when you're already out of the womb. You have intergenerational trauma. You're told that you're not as good as everybody else. You're told that you're ugly, all this stuff. And then, oh yeah, you're going to get stopped by the cops. You get hurt by the cops, hate crime. You're going to get paid less. All this stuff you're dealing with day to day. And then on top of that, if you want to make things better for yourself, if you live in these communities, you have to put in even more steps versus just take the easy route, go to McDonald's for dinner, come home, go to sleep. And it's I won't myself blame, but it's very hard to blame any of us for taking that route, especially since you don't see white America going, you know what, we're going to help. We're done with this nonsense. It's time you be equal like the rest of us.
Economic assimilation.
Indeed.
Well, nobody can ever say that Whitey didn't think things through.
Oh, they're a smart bunch. Jeez. I think that's what's funny about Trump. He's not smart. The people around him are smart. Jeff Sessions is smart.
I don't know
Mike
about
Pence?
that.
Well, maybe in a forensic psychiatry sort of way, yeah.
Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, in order to continue this racist nonsense, you have to be pretty cunning to serve it out to the masses, especially at least your base, your racist base, because you have to update everything. Oh, black president now. Women ran for president. So there is a level of skill you have to continue this stuff.
Well, you know, like, okay, this is what I'm going to present as against that specifically. You look at something like the Bolshevik Revolution. That was led by Lenin, who was considered to be, you know, the smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
That was an intellectual revolution. But then Stalin came in and turned it into a physical imposement. And I think that with going back, you can go back to Lyndon Johnson and go through every administration forward. All the tools were being put in place for some sort of massive rise in the amount of oppression on everybody. And I think that Trump is like the Stalin. He's the one who's finally going to flip all these levers.
Well, I think there's a key difference when you talk about Stalin versus American leaders. Although this place is not a democracy, it's not a full-blown dictatorship.
No, but
right, it's what I was saying earlier.
The legislation that still has to be passed versus I'm just going to go on radio and say, all right, if you do any of this, you're dead. I'm going to starve millions of people. And it's just a little different.
Like Duterte has done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Philippines.
Well, I mean, what I want to say to that is from Lenin to Stalin, the Soviet Union wasn't like that either. It was Stalin who started the NKVD. It was Stalin who had to cleanse the entire country of people who opposed him.
Right.
Lenin didn't do that, So what I'm saying is that's where I see Trump as the Stalin. He's the one who's going to say, well, you know what? Fuck all these people who are opposed to me. I can deal with them. And that, of course, is a definite loss of any sense of democracy then.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain percentage, we said it before, of his base that say if he wanted to eliminate the elections in 2018 and just remain president, that would be fine with them.
Holy Christ.
That's when then you have a serious correlation.
Yeah. And those are the same people who will turn around in the same breath, turn around and talk about how patriotic they are and how they love our democracy. And, fuck, dude. That crowd, good God.
Yeah, let me give you some facts, you guys. Americans are superior to everyone else, and Glenn knows this. He's jealous, and Top knows this, and he's jealous. Because 2,000 years ago, Jesus, when he was sewing the American flag, he said, God bless America. And we live by those words now.
Wasn't he cleaning his AK?
Oh, yeah.
They didn't have AKs back then. It was an M16.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
praise Jesus.
Yep, and that's also why people in other countries shouldn't be expected to react to fucked up shit the same way we would. Because we're better than them.
Well, you had that happens every year, but you had a whole day yesterday honoring and remembering the victims of Pearl Harbor, which you should do. It was a horrible tragedy. It was an act of terrorism. Right. But so was Hiroshima and Nagasaki. To this day, America has never apologized for the largest act of terror in the history of the world.
We bombed one, and then we bombed the other just because we could. Like, we didn't need to, to get a surrender.
Didn't need to on either.
Yeah.
To get a surrender, maybe. I mean, the Japanese were putting up a good fight.
Eisenhower himself, who was a general in the army at the time in World War II for the United States, and then became president of the United States, he said himself, neither bomb needed to be dropped. The Japanese were going to quit. And then if you can add on to that, the Russians were going to invade Japan.
Yep.
And one major reason why those bombs were dropped was so Stalin didn't get more land and didn't become more powerful. And even though America was allies with the Russians in the war, they obviously had a little rivalry going on.
Yeah, I believe that was the big factor in the Japanese intent to surrender, because Russia declared war against all the Axis powers, and the war was over in Europe. So that machine was turning to the east And Japan said, no, fuck that. We don't need that.
So let's predict
But of
the
course,
future. Oh, go ahead.
everybody on this side of the globe knows it was the scientific brilliance and ruthless execution to save the world of the United States.
Well, of course, because we're number one, don't you know?
Oh yeah.
I just told you Jesus said that. Why do you question it?
Like George Carlin said, they call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Yeah.
Love that one.
Let's do some predicting of the future now.
Oh God.
What do you guys think is going to happen? How and when do you think Trump will leave office?
At the latest, 2020. At the earliest, excuse me. The earliest, 2020.
I think that... Go ahead, Steve.
It's anybody's call right now. I mean, again, shit is developing so rapidly in so many different directions that, if you'd asked me a month ago, I would have said, oh, he'll be gone in 6 months. You ask me today, I'm saying he may never be gone, because you have this race now between Mueller to indict him and him to put this secret police thing of his into play. If he puts that secret police thing into play, nobody's going to be able to indict him of shit. Nobody's going to be able to run against him. So
well,
you can't tell, because next month, what the fuck is it going to be?
Well, I'll just comment on the Gestapo plan. There's going to come a point, if it hasn't occurred already, where a lot of people who are responsible for the everyday function of the federal government all across the country, they will simply stop doing their job. There's going to be protest within the civil service. It's going on now. We're not hearing about it, but it may become obvious if Trump gets too carried away, because, it's like anything else, an army or a laboratory or anything else. It takes everybody in there to come up with tangible results, but I don't think... What?
I like that idea, but I can tell you're not from here because you have way too much faith in the American people.
Okay.
You don't realize how stupid this country is. I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay, you got the bright side people that always say, "Oh, the soldiers will defend the people. The soldiers will fight for your rights, and they'll stand up for you if it ever got bad against the government." No, they won't. Historically, they haven't done that. History tells us they won't do it, and even as close to just look at Standing Rock. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're going to attack us. What?
90%. That's a great point, Tim. 90% of North Dakota is white.
Yep.
Where the hell were they?
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Oh, y'all. Don't get me started on North Dakota and the Morton County thugs who lie. Oh.
Yeah, people will say, "Oh, well, some veterans came down there," and yeah, there was some ex-veterans who went down there and did pretty much no. They didn't. You know what I mean? They said they were going to stay. They were going to stand between the people, and if they had to fight, they were going to fight. None of that happened. They did some good. They stood down there with the people, but
I understand that. I understand that. But I mean, let's remember that the National Guard in North Dakota, that's a decision by their governor. And by the Constitution, the National Guard, a federal operation, is they have to obey that governor's request. So their behavior is the issue. But if they're all part of that 90% North Dakota white demographic, well, yeah, I think it's pretty predictable what's going to happen. Now, what I'm talking about are major nexus points of the federal government's operations. Like, what if the federal building in Los Angeles or in, let's say, Austin decided that everybody was going to stay home for a day?
I hope it's Los Angeles. That would be awesome.
Less traffic.
we're getting into new territory, so I think it's obvious, even though it's very discombobulated and ridiculous, there is active opposition. There are still people, and it seems to be growing, that are saying, no, this shit isn't cool. So, it's a thing of action and reaction. We haven't seen the American people be subject to this much limitation in such a short time. So this is something new. I don't expect it, but I don't think it's completely out of the question that we may, by the time midterms come, be seeing some sizable public protest.
Well, we did see that when he got elected, and I said then that I'm just waiting for waiting for them to go back home and drink their pumpkin spice lattes, which is what happened. And you'll see a Trump protest pop out every now and again. But look at the racists in Poland. Tens of thousands of people in the name of white supremacy marching in the streets to fight for white supremacy. Or then look at the people with actual hearts. Hundreds of thousands of people at times will protest issues for women, for example, in different countries in Europe. Or in Turkey, you have thousands of people protesting the awful government and all the human rights that are being taken away from the people. America is, you said the quote perfectly. They call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. Americans and the citizens of this country are asleep. Even my own folks, most of my own folks, we either think everything's fine or we try to buy into the American dream to get out of the hell that we have been put in. We will buy into Barack Obama. We'll even buy into Hillary Clinton. We'll buy into the narrative, well, we had slaves too, so slavery wasn't that bad. We'll buy into, well, if we join the police force, we can change it. We'll buy into all that.
No, I think that's a very good point. And I think if you look at any place that fascism has gained power in the last couple centuries, whether it's Germany or Italy or Spain or wherever, the biggest factor that allowed it was not that there was so much of the population that were all for it. It was the apathy of the majority that allowed it to happen.
That's how the nation was founded and kept going. I can't imagine, and I'm trying to do this as best as I can because I would have been a slave. I'm trying to imagine myself as a white person walking by a plantation, seeing black people working for free in horrible conditions, and just continuing to walk and move on with my day. But that's what most of them did. Just like now. Tiana McMillan, Sarah Lee Circlebearer, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, on and on and on and on and on. They walk on by. They don't care. Doesn't affect them. And even when it does affect them, Trump, they still, it's bad, but I mean, the Kardashians are on. It's season 68. I need to watch it. I'm having a house party for it. It's just, calm down. It's not that serious.
Indeed. I guess that's, me being from outside the United States, that's just something I will not be able to fully grasp. Probably because I wouldn't fucking believe it if I saw it, but
I don't believe.
What?
I always lately I've seen a lot more American flags and those American flags with the blue line. The supporting of police one.
Yeah.
And a lot of support our troops. A lot more of those lately. Just on people. It's always some white family or some white guy in some kind of a truck or a big giant monstrous vehicle generally, but I'm seeing a lot more than I used to.
Which is one of the 14 tenets
Yep.
of fascism that we discussed
Yep.
on that podcast series, which anybody listening, I encourage you to listen to that 14-part series, which is also on People's Radio United. We went through each of the 14 tenets and discussed them and their relevance to America today. It's pretty eye-opening, and it's also pretty disturbing.
Yep.
So you still have either in this country as prisoners, black people as slaves, or in Libya, thank you, Mr. Obama and Mrs. Clinton, and you still have natives being murdered and having their land taken away. 241 years later. It started with this, and it continues to this day.
Yeah, I had hope that it was gradually getting better, but it's clearly not. And now it's going to get a lot worse really fast. You know, I woke up this morning and I had a thought. It just like hit me. I was like, as I was waking up, I was just kind of thinking about things, especially the development over the last week. And then just all of a sudden I was like, holy fuck. We could see the return of chattel slavery.
We have it in the prisons. There'll just be more of that.
One thing I am, I might say, grateful because yes, my ancestors fought tooth and nail to get us farther and get us closer to it. On our path to freedom, closer to freedom, that I am grateful that we now have the power to stop that, because we, along with legitimate white allies, were able to get ourselves out of slavery. But at the same time, we didn't have the power to stop slavery when it was starting. But now, because there's too many of us, and we do have some influence in this country. It's not a lot, but I'm pretty confident if that was somehow trying to be put in place, we could stop that. And I just wonder, we've had conversations about it. I've had conversations about it with different black activists and intellectuals, native activists and intellectuals, but what will it be that alt-white pushing for that so hard, and then that's how the Civil War part dos starts? Or will it be us pushing for freedom non-violently, as we have done for a long time, and some of it, Nat Turner being one, I've taken the other route, and I won't blame him for it. But it's an interesting topic to think about. What is going to either start the revolution or start another civil war?
It's going to be one event that's going to set shit off. It always starts with one event that's built up off of years and years and years of other events. But one event usually is the flashpoint, but nobody knows what that's going to be. But I think we've said that before on here. Something's going to happen and shit's going to kick off. But you know what, though? White people, too, need to think about this, because, like I've been saying for many years, Kelly Thomas was white, son of a cop. He was beaten by cops. He wasn't safe from anything. All those cops got off. And now you have the J20 defendants, mostly white. They're looking at lots of years locked away fighting for people's rights. So it's everybody. White people can't say, oh, this doesn't affect me anymore, because it's going to affect you just like it affects everybody else more and more as time goes by.
Lori Love, Matt DeHart, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden.
Well, that's where this is ultimately leading. Is the joke is going to be on white people because, I mean, they get away with it on black people. They get away with it on Native Americans. They get away with it on this group. Eventually, they're going to work up to straight white people, And at that point, a lot of white people are okay with it because it's not happening to them. And then there's this whole thing of, that plays into systemic racism where nobody wants to be at the bottom of the food chain. And white people in America are not the ones at the bottom of the food chain. I mean, I hear about, well, poor white people, it's about class. No, a poor white person still has it better than a poor black person. I know because I've lived as a poor white person and I've had poor black friends and seen what they go through and compared it to what I go through, and what I went through was nothing compared to what they go through. So, but white people don't want to give that up. And I think there's a lot of like self-denial about that. I won't acknowledge that, because if I acknowledge that, then I have to admit that I have a preferred place in this hierarchical psychopathic system of ours. And then I would have to be confronted with the moral dilemma of, do I want to keep that advantage and that comfort that I have, or do I want to share it and give some of that up? I think a lot of people just don't want to deal with that moral question, so they're in denial about it. But eventually, this is going to catch up to them.
I think that explains basically the foundation of the caste system in India. It's the same goddamn thing. But I think why we've seen the refocus in the labeling using the political extremes of left and right, that's a way of including white people into the enemy. Like you said, right. Almost all the J20 defendants are white, but what are they labeled as? Left, Antifa, socialists. That's making them the enemy. Color is disappearing.
Freedom fighters.
Well, I do take issue with that as well, Glenn. You're trying to label someone who is putting themselves out there for other people just to discredit them when you're the one who has the problem and is creating the problem. But at the same time, aside from those legitimate white allies and the ones that I share this program with each week, we've had a close to doomsday situation before, or at least doomsday-like, the Great Depression. And what ended up happening was things got fixed for white folks. While at the same time, there wasn't a huge uproar from white America for the people of color, for the people in the ghettos and the people on the reservation. It was just for them, and if I was a white person, for me, for us, just let's take care of ourselves. And that's one very depressing realization that I have come to with my own work, is that as a whole, white America, it's just, they're not going to help, no matter what, until we are able, and I say people of color and legitimate white allies, are able to make our voice strong enough and loud enough where you can't quash us anymore, you can't silence us anymore, and we twist the arm of white America to the point where it's almost going to snap, and they go, okay, fine. We won't have this racist place anymore. We see you. We can't hide from it anymore. You're putting it right in front of our face.
Yeah, you're wrong there. You can twist their arm till it's about to snap. You have to break their arm off and shove it down their fucking throat, and they'll still be fighting you. Then you have to shove that arm up their ass, and maybe you might get somewhere. Just twisting their arm, I don't care how hard you twist it. As long as they still have an arm attached, these people are sick. These people twist everything against everybody that goes against them.
Well, what I mean by that is twisting enough arms of that group, white America, so this country can finally fall, and the system can finally fall, and we can actually build something that is much closer to freedom, and hopefully something that is puts freedom as a main ideal, and not just in some bogus fine print of all men are created equal, but really only cisgendered white straight men are created equal. Because you're right. I mean,
I don't see a peaceful way to make that happen. I don't see them being peaceful while you're trying to peacefully make that happen.
That's right. Freedom is taken. It's not granted.
Well, I think there'll be a little both either way. No matter which way the movement goes towards, as a majority, that minority of violence or nonviolence is still going to happen. So, I advocate for nonviolence because I've seen what we've been able to do with it. For my people, whether it be South Africa, whether it be the United States, getting us out of slavery, giving at least, well, our last, I guess, the last points of freedom, the last rights, I guess, that we got back in the 60s. Okay, so now the majority of us can vote. We can sit on the front of the bus. We can sit on the roof of the bus. We can sit in the back. It doesn't matter. But we're still in pretty bad shape. But the point is, I advocate for nonviolence. That's just my way. But at the same time, I will not blame any of us for taking the other route, because when the person and the people doing this to you continue to use violence without a conscience, you can't blame the victim for fighting back with violence. And I'm kind of paraphrasing Stokely Carmichael there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the people doing the violence are getting away with it. The people perpetuating violence against people of color and such. I look at these like Antifa events. That's not how that's not how I go about things. But like, I'm looking at that and I'm like, I see people beating up people with bats, beating up people who want genocide, and it's not what I'm out there doing, but the fuckers want genocide. Like, how is that wrong?
Here's the thing. They can say whatever they want about these cats, but they're out there putting in work. They'll fight with police. They'll fight with any fascist. Yep. It's not like a group that will go out there and hug the police and cater to the police while claiming they hate fascism.
Right.
These cats are saying, like, eventually it's going to come down to this. There's not going to be a revolution where everybody's happy and nobody dies. That's fiction, dude. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be a lot of deaths on a lot of different sides before it's all said and done. Unfortunately, that's just the way I think things are in this sick world. We have warmongers trying to stop us from being free, and they don't really care if you're hugging them and holding picket signs and singing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, I really respect what Nolan says. Yeah, in a perfect world, that's the way to change. But I would just say that if you want to use the South African model, let's remember that the Afrikaners, the whites in South Africa, were a absolute visible minority, like to a very large degree. So, I mean, if you want to see anything like that happen in the United States, I think you're looking at waiting another 50 years before it's possible.
Yeah, the numbers, although people of color will be the majority soon enough, it won't be that high of a majority. You're absolutely right.
This is people's faults from that didn't fight before, and then we're gonna say, oh, let's wait again another 50 years for this, or let's wait on this, and then the next generation has to say, oh, these assholes before didn't do anything. Somebody has to just step it up and say, let's get this over with. Because they're going to only get more powerful. They're only going to get better technology. It's only going to get harder.
Yep.
I actually had an experience last week. I was having drinks, and a friend said, because I don't know, I popped off something anti-government, and my friend said, the government is our enemy, and there is going to come a time when we have to fight them. But that's not right now. And that's the problem we have today. People recognize the government is against us, and people are saying, yeah, and we have to push back against the government eventually. If you wait until eventually, all the tools we have now to push back against the government won't exist.
Yeah, just like all the tools the people 20, 30, 40 years ago had against the government that didn't have all this technology now, where the playing field was much more even. Right. They didn't do anything. So we're stuck here now where it's even worse. And these people want to wait longer? Yeah. Something's got to give. People are literally going, I know we got about 15, 20 minutes left, so, but it's ridiculous. Let's do an update right now on somebody that's suffering terribly, looking at 99 years, getting extradited to the United States, and that's Lori Love. He just had a...
Lowry.
What?
Lowry.
His name is Lowry.
What do you say?
What did I say?
Everyone calls him Lori, but his name is Lowry. Sorry, I have to say it.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Before you guys get into that, I'd like to say I'm wearing my Free Lowry Love shirt, but I got to go because I'm on my other air in 5 minutes. So thank you for having me on, and I will see you maybe next week.
Okay, it was awesome having you here, Gear. I know you're always driving, and it's a hectic thing, but we appreciate it.
I can't chime in as much as I want to, but I really appreciate you guys having me on. So I'll try to listen in as much as I can and be quietly in the background. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Much love.
Hey, Gary.
Bye, Gary.
Bye, guys.
So, yeah, what's going on with Lowry Love? No new news yet since last week, right?
No, the 2-day hearing concluded. Now it will be waiting for the decision.
Any idea on how long that's going to be? Nobody really has any idea about that.
I think they're allowed to take a certain time period, and it could definitely go into next year. But I don't know. I mean, it's a very in the news topic in the UK right now. We've talked about it before. I don't see any reason for him to be sent there, especially if Theresa May wants to appear to be anti-Trump, which seems to be in vogue in every other country right now. So I think there's a very good chance extradition will be refused. If it's granted, that's going to cause a big problem over there.
Yeah, we all hope it's refused. For anybody interested that doesn't currently follow the Lori Love story, you can always look up hashtag trial at home, hashtag no love for U.S. government, but just GOVT, or just hashtag Lori Love, free Lori Love. But get involved in that. Hopefully there'll be good news. He won't be extradited.
Well, I think the biggest ironic factor in this whole thing is the clause of British law that the defense for Lowry is trying to invoke here is something that's never been used before since it's been put on the books, and it was put on the books by none other than Theresa May, who is now the Prime Minister. So for her to rule against a law that she put in, that sounds pretty dangerous from a political survival point of view.
Yeah.
Is it really getting that much press over there? That's a pleasant surprise. I know, obviously, American England are a little different, but you don't hear anything about Matt DeHart over here, or Chelsea Manning was.
Well, it's a big deal because it's in their country. They still tend to care a little bit more about their citizens than ours, and one of their citizens is they want to extradite to the land of Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, a big issue is if you go back 4 or 5 years with the arrests and convictions of people in LulzSec or other groups of the day, their crimes were supposedly in the U.S. jurisdiction as well, but they were dealt with there, you know? They didn't have to go to the U.S. for crimes against U.S. infrastructure. So why should Lowry have to go?
Yeah. I don't know. I hope it works out. Anyway, what's the next update? We had to go Serena Shim. If you guys been watching the account, it's been pretty exciting. Lowell Saints has been wreaking havoc and taking down sites and leaking a whole bunch of data from different emails and different government sites from the Turkish government and those who support them. It's been a big deal.
And that's what's really exciting is, you know, you're not just getting websites shut down and websites defaced. You know, they're dumping all kinds of data, all kinds of leaks. They're showing that, you know, to me, it's a good show of force. It's showing that, hey, all of you who have been blocking, you know, justice for this woman and her family, you're going to get wrecked.
Yeah, and also, you know, if you're a journalist, if any journalist happens to be listening to this show, that would be awesome. Look through some of these files that they're releasing and the leaks they're putting out. You never know what's in there. I highly recommend people go through this stuff and see what they're releasing, because I don't know what's in there. I've tried to look through some of it, but it's a ton of stuff.
Yeah,
so definitely.
It's a high volume of stuff. And the other thing is you know, they're promising reporters that if a reporter tries to cover this, because there's been such an incredible censorship of reporters, even at smaller media outlets, they're promising that if anybody interferes with any agency or entity interferes with any reporter covering this story and investigating this story, that they will rain hell on their servers and they will dump their data. And the exciting thing is they've demonstrated that they can do just that, you know. And I know it's got to be an incentive to leave reporters alone for, you know, to know that your secrets could be on the internet the next day. Because, like, these guys take shit down fast, you know. I'm pretty sure there's no time to see it coming.
It's just a shame that this... You fight for other people's human rights, and this is what happens to you. But I want to add to that, there's not enough of us doing that. That's why this continues to happen to these people. Because if it's so few of folks stepping out for oppressed people, putting their lives on the line, then their lives are going to continue to be taken.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess just what I'm doing is I'm just keeping an eye on the Ops Arena account, and watching the action like everybody else. It is entertaining at times. So yeah, we got a couple. Oh, go ahead. What?
Oh, I was just going to say, Turkey is always close to a boiling point. And I find it interesting how Trump's Jerusalem announcement has brought the most anti-U.S. comment from Turkey for quite some time. So, it's going to be very interesting. I mean, obviously what's going on in Turkey is not over, even though there was, 40,000 people fired, 10,000 people arrested, hundreds of people imprisoned over a quote-unquote coup attempt. But Trump has not given up the person that Erdogan wants, who has asylum in the U.S.
Gulen or whatever.
Yeah, Gulen. So does Erdogan see an opportunity to be an Arab leader against this Jerusalem thing? So, I mean, all kinds of things could shake loose. So if Lol Saints keeps up the work, we could see some real interesting stuff in the next little while.
Oh, yes. Yes. That Vengeance for Serena campaign, that's definitely a campaign to keep an eye on. It's certainly been entertaining so far, and it's definitely going to be insightful and yield a lot of knowledge. There's no doubt about that.
Well, whatever. Carry on.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yep. They keep saying they're going to do more and more and more, so we'll see. We have a few more minutes. Last but not least, net neutrality. Agitpie and Verizon, they're going to take it no matter what people say, no matter what people do. It's gone. I think that's just the case now. You think I'm right?
And no matter what gets exposed, over 1 million comments on FCC's website against net neutrality proven fraudulent. And where's the media outcry about that? That's something that Stephen Harper liked to do in Canada. Have a bunch of bots and trolls tell him how great his policy was, and none of them actually existed. So, right. This is a form of hacking public discourse. And not much is being said about it. You want to talk about the state of democracy in the United States? Here's a perfect example. 1 million false comments to a federal commission. That doesn't say democracy to me at all.
Yeah, but there was over 20 million he ignored because he said 140,000 of them seemed like they were a form.
Yeah.
But you know what? Here's the thing. A lot of times people don't know what to say, but they know they're against this. They know they want to keep the internet free. So someone types a letter up and they just add their name and send the same letter. And that could be the case in a lot of these. As far as the 20 million plus he got, saying we need to keep net neutrality, they just totally ignored. Totally ignored 20 million people.
See, now that just shouldn't be happening. No matter what glorious, deified document you point to in the so-called creation of the greatest country on earth, none of those documents say what's happening right now is cool. None. But it's happening.
I mean, this guy goes into government makes him and everybody he knows even richer, then he's going to leave and get a job back with the company that makes him even richer. How sick is that? And it's allowed.
Well, again, Mussolini said corporate power in the government equals that F word.
I'm really wondering why there's not millions of people surrounding the FCC building and dragging these people out by their ankles. No, this isn't going to happen. And if anyone else comes in there and tries to take our internet, they'll get dragged out by their ankles too. It's just ridiculous.
Again, apathy. The biggest enemy against mankind since the dawn of time. Apathy.
Yeah, and these people are like, oh, they're big companies. They wouldn't hurt us like that. Yes, they would. That's their whole goal. You're nothing but dollar signs to them. Take all your money and leave you with none. That's their goal.
Yeah, they will do it. They just rather do it without any laws telling them they can't. That's where they're at now.
Yeah.
Awesome. December 14th, I believe, is the actual vote on net neutrality.
And within 6 months to a year, you guys will all of us, not just the people listening, will start seeing some kind of effects taking place. And eventually it'll be so normal that you pay for internet like you do cable TV.
Yep. Not only that, but imagine having your cable with Comcast and you're not allowed to see the channels that are run by, whatever Verizon owns.
Yeah, don't they black out sporting events and there's going to be pay-per-view stuff where you have to pay to see a site at a certain time when it's got a lot of traffic?
Oh, man.
It's going to be the most horrible thing we've seen done to the internet ever.
It's elitism.
No, it's just absolute information control. There's no way around that.
And you're going to be stuck with whatever companies have your area.
Well, yeah.
Some people won't even be able to get fast speeds. Other people will be able to get fast speeds at a high price. It's just shit. Just, really.
If you don't have money,
us.
You're not a good person. But if you have all the money, you're the best person.
Yes.
That's elitism.
Yes. And just for the record, I would like to add that the Canadian federal government has made official statements saying net neutrality is a basic part of the internet, and Canada has no plans to remove it. So I can see an industry being created in Canada with people setting up servers and getting 4 or 5 IPs and creating a service where they will route U.S. internet users to the full internet.
Oh, that's awesome.
There you go.
I'm sure there'll be some sort of, whether illegal or legal means after net neutrality falls apart. And I'm glad that the Canadians may have that plan right there. It's funny for me with a lot of countries, but Canada being one. Like, I know what they do to Indigenous women and girls, but at the same time, as a whole, I got a better quality of life up there, outside of Native women and girls. Interesting. So it's lesser of evils in the colonized world, I guess.
It's just a matter of degree. That's all, We'll let you guys take the lead. We'll just kind of wander behind you and try and stay out of the pictures.
So you'll get Trump in about 8 years yourself, because like you always say.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because Trudeau was our Obama to get rid of our Bush Harper.
Mm-hmm.
And it's turning out exactly the same way. Wow.
Sorry.
That was cool. Not as cool as my Top Gun ringtone earlier, but still cool.
Is that the song Trudeau plays every time he has an event or something?
Wait, what?
I just thought that since we were bringing up Trudeau, I thought, this is a funky, new age, hip music. I thought Trudeau.
Trudeau's entrance music.
Oh, yeah. He has a theme song.
Here's a theme song that follows him around.
No, actually, I think if there was entrance music for Justin Trudeau, if we're going to stick to the wrestling metaphor, he would be Bobby Roode. His song would most certainly be Glorious.
Wow.
I could see him doing that at a Liberal Party convention with a red robe on instead of a blue one, and they would go apeshit for it.
Crazy. Well, on that note.
Great way to end the show.
I guess we're going to say goodbye to all our wonderful listeners and check out Whose Culture next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. What is that? 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then the view up here is 6 p.m. Pacific time and 9 p.m. Eastern time. Am I correct, Glenn?
Yes.
Yep. And then Top Gear Live on Sundays at 12 p.m. No, it's 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'm so bad with time conversions. And we'll be back here next Friday and every Friday. Thanks for listening. Thank you guys for being on here, and we'll see the people next week.
Indeed. Y'all have a good weekend. Peace, y'all.
Take care.
Ta-ta.